What is shaking? It's your boy, Marc Cardon, Golden Mike Live. How does it feel for me to say that in front of your face, Paul Silva? You told
That's
me
the
to
best.
tell you a mom joke on this live show.
No, I said we can go anywhere. Just keep the mom jokes, maybe off to the side. I know.
Well, you know what?
I just wrecked your MO.
Your mom is, dang, I can't go there. Paul Silva, author of, well, you know what? I'm not even going to go there right now. Before we even go into your introduction, Paul, I want everybody to know I missed you guys. And I also want you to know that I ain't going anywhere. But also, for those of you who have hit rock bottom, or for those of you who feel like the world is like the sky is falling on you right now, this is the perfect show to tune into. This is the perfect guy to listen to today. And let's enjoy our day, whether you're East Coast, West Coast, and worldwide. Paul Silva is in Toronto. Coach Paul Silva, author of Longing for the Spirit. Paul Silva is live with us today to talk about how these like low moments in our lives can actually be probably the best moments for growth. Am I correct, Paul Silva?
Oh man, that was a great intro. Yes. Low, you can live. You don't have to live in rock bottom. I mean, some people stay there and they decorate and all that, but you can just shoot right back up, because that is definitely what I talk about. And I'm really happy to be here to chill out and just share some of that love.
Well, it's good to see you, Paul Silva. You've been an avid show watcher, so I know who your name was. But like, we've never talked live, and like we literally have not talked live like up until 2 minutes before the show. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you like seriously on live right now. I've been reading your book, Longing for the Spirit, which is out, and this is the cool thing: we're giving out a book today. We're giving out a book, and we're not giving out like an electronic book. Hold that mofo.
Yes, I'll get there.
Hold that book. Oh yeah. You think you can hold up a book? I'm shameless. I'm shameless too. I put my face on the cover of that book.
I didn't do that.
Shameless, Paul Silva. Shameless. We're shameless.
I know. So we're the Canadian. Up in Canada, we're a little bit more polite. We kind of put it on the back, so that we're just a little more, Nope. No, come on. No,
man. Bro. Front, bro. Mouth open. Front.
Ready.
So, Paul, before we even start with your story, man, because I'm curious. I was paging through your book when I was, when you sent it about a month ago, which was very kind of you. There's a lot of deep stuff in this book about you hitting rock bottom and you telling your story. And I thought it was pretty courageous. But before we even go there, for those of you who are watching for the first time, my name is Marc Cardon, founder of the Joy Revolution, founder of Make Money Coaching, and more importantly, I'm a positive psychology coach, which means the first thing is, are you feeling happy today? Scale of 1 to 10. You don't have to worry about all the other data that's out there, positive psychology, whatever all that crap is. Don't worry about that data. Scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you feeling today? The other thing is this, scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like you're living life with purpose and fulfillment? So Paul Silva, you've been to hell and back and hell and back and hell and back, and it's burned for you, son. So let me ask you this. Today, October 16th, how happy and how fulfilled are you feeling?
What's that number after 9 again? 10. 10.
10. 10. 10.
Yeah, man.
We've got a
ding,
10.
ding, ding. Up at the limit.
So for those of you feeling like you're at a 10 right now, watching live or watching on the replay, I want you to do what Paul Silva and I are going to do. If you're living life at its fullest and you're feeling good about it, Paul Silva, you know what time it is. It's not time for mom jokes. It's time for Paul Silva to make that wow face. Oh, you suck at MC. You suck at MC. That's how you know when someone's been to hell and back, because they're happy with making some funny jokes. They're not too far up their own ass, which is what I like about you, Paul. Paul. By the way, Paul swears like a sailor. I had to correct him. No F-bombs on my show. Oh, I have no idea where that comes from.
Oh man.
So we got a wow face. We got a wow face already. Who's our wow face from today? Is that Vicky? Yep, that's Vicky. Vicky in New York, watching us in watching me in LA, watching Paul in Toronto. Thank you, Vicky, for tuning in and making the wow face with us. Paul, I just want to get right to it today. What's your story, bro?
What's my story, man? Well, it was a wonderful day. No, I'm not going to get into soliloquies. It was, no, my story, it's the way I joke about it sometimes is, I went out to a party when I was 15 years old. I didn't come back till I was 40. I had a sort of a 25-year temper tantrum, fueled by booze. Right now I'm a life coach, and at 15, that's when I started picking up the drink. And so just like everyone else, I just party, have fun, all that kind of deal. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I found that I really started to like the drink, and the drink really liked me. And I liked what it did for me, and what it did to me, and sort of how I viewed the world. So all of a sudden, I had these new filters going on, and that was because I started to depend. We call it substance dependency, alcohol dependency. I started to depend on alcohol. I didn't do any recreational drugs. That's not my story. But in terms of alcohol, that was my thing, man. Like, and it got, it always gets worse. So it started out manageable. And as things got worse over the years, I mean, I was functioning compared to what? I don't know, but I was functioning. And as I started to, increase the tolerance and it wasn't a problem until it became a problem, right? And so people talk about having, a drinking problem. I didn't have a problem drinking. I drank like a champ. Drinking wasn't my problem. It was my solution. And that's what it was, my solution. Alcohol saved my ass a lot of times, when I got to really funks. It saved me. It got me out of these funks. But it started to become a problem of itself. And so, classic alcoholic thinking, they also call it the disease of more, because more, it's all I want. And more everything. Mark, it's not just the alcohol. It's what it represents. It represents connection. It represents sense of being. It represents being comfortable in your skin. I didn't have any of that. I didn't feel it. So I had this one thing that made me feel like I had some of that. And why wouldn't you get addicted to something like that? It's like instant, and it's instantaneous. I know I got a bottle and I'm good. And so that built up. And I was in my old career, I was a chef. And so, it's very, very, classic. And they gave me keys. I talk about that in the book, one of the stories. I had keys to the liquor room. They had no idea what they were doing. And as I joke, giving the keys to the liquor room to an alcoholic is like giving the keys to the liquor room to an alcoholic. It's like, yes, I'm going to go in and get something. Yeah, I got something. And so it really started to spiral out of control. And as the tolerance increased, the secretive nature, that started to, so you start hiding stuff, you start shuffling things away. And that's also another classic sort of trait. And just, and really underneath all of this, Mark, was tons of self-loathing, tons, like just horrible. I say horrible things to myself, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And just how I viewed myself. I couldn't look in mirrors. I wanted to spit at my own reflection. There was just so much self-loathing, and that is very common too. So as that started to increase, it's a cycle. You have guilt, remorse, and that made me want to drink, and then you'd feel guilt, remorse again, and it's a cycle. And the thing is, physically, it just rips you apart. You can only take so much of that. And there was times where literally, Mark, I would be like at work or wherever it was, trying not wanting to drink. Like my body was just like getting it out of me, and I'm forcing it down because my brain says you need it. You need this, like you need to breathe, you need air. So eventually what this happened is, what came crashing down is I got a DUI, and I had my 3.5-year-old son in the back, and I was pulled over, and actually I was parked, they found me, and there I am getting the cuffs on, and I see a police officer playing with a Thomas train with my son, who didn't know what was going on. And so that was really bottom. And I'd like to say that I didn't drink after that. After I got out, I did. a couple more times, but I had to finally surrender. That was it. It was surrender. And that's how you win. You don't fight this kind of thing. People say, you got to fight and be strong. No, surrender. That's where the strength is. You surrender to it. And that's what happened to me. I finally surrendered. I said, no mas, no mas, I'm done. And that is where the change started to happen. And that is where I had to be just totally real with myself and totally real with all the crap that I created in drama and look at myself for the first time. And that was the turning point. It was painful, but that was the turning point.
We've got a lot of different ways to go. Son, you gave me like some talking points to talk about. We might be deviating from this right off the bat. Me? You can't boot me from the show, B-Live. We're going to go in a million different directions. Well, this is why we talk about this bullshit before the show. The people at B-Live don't want to hear this stuff.
It's too real. It's too much for them.
Well, I have a feeling that half of you at B-Live are still self-loathing, you sucker MCs. You need to listen to this. And for those of you who are not in Canada, like you, Jorge, saying hi to us from Puerto Rico. Jorge, I've missed your ass, Jorge. It's good to see you. No mas.
No mas.
Puerto Rico or outside of Toronto means no more of the sauce, no more of the self-loathing, no more of this bullshit. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see how you got to the no mas section. I'm also curious to see how it got to this point in terms of the self-loathing and the cycle that you are in. Renee McGowan Bellinger or Belanger, I don't know how I'm saying it because I don't know what part of Canada you're in.
Belanger.
Bellinger. If you're in LA right now, Bellinger's very hot. 9 years sober. 9 years sober. Very familiar story.
Awesome.
Congratulations. Jorge, nothing but love. Vicky, good to see you today. Let's go into your story a little bit deeper now, Paul. Paul, I'm curious. So when you picked up the sauce, like it was just basically a social thing, right? Like that a lot of people are doing when they're younger, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. You know, you go out. That's how you do it.
Yeah, yep. And so, do you feel like before you even picked up the sauce, there was self-loathing issues that were there, or like more self-loathing issues than the normal 15-year-old would have? You know, because 15 to 22, that's a lot of executive functioning that's happening in the brain. You know, so there's a lot of turnover that's happening. Would you say that you were more susceptible or more vulnerable to the disease more than anyone else in society that would be more susceptible to the disease of more?
You know, that's a good question because, you know, it's estimated about 10% of the population will fall into some sort of substance abuse. There is something, there's different arguments about what the model of the, you know, disease. Some people just don't say it's a disease. Anyway, for me, it was, you know, there was already some friction. You know what I call it? It's the friction between who I wanted to be and who I really was. You know, like there was this false, you know, I should be this, I should be that, but then there was the real me. And that kind of friction, that fueled it. But definitely there was some self-loathing. There was a lot of questions, you know, there's a lot of things. And, you know, a lot of it came from bullying, getting bullied. That was, I don't blame it. That's not the reason, you know, but that was definitely a factor. And that really, because it came to a point where I equated being myself to pain. That was the equation my brain came up with. And so therefore I should not be myself equals no pain. But because I'm cutting myself off at the knees, I needed something to help me navigate that or to dismiss it. And that was drinking. And so when I picked it up, honestly, I think 17 years old may have been the only age ever where I could take it or leave it, honestly. After that, it became a necessity. But definitely it fueled the self-loathing, and then the self-loathing, as I said, it became that cycle, you know, of guilt and remorse. And how do you get out of that? Especially when you're a teenager, you're already kind of, you know, messed up in writing that terrible teen angst poetry. You know, now you got this, you know, listening to goth music, whatever. I was
gonna say, were you a Depeche Mode person like I am?
No,
were you listening like I was?
No, I was like Slayer and all these death metal bands. So
dude, Slayer!
Yeah. Oh yeah, I even had the hair down to my halfway down my back. It was all black, you know. That it's just that was death metal.
I'm putting the warning up right now. Slayer equals sauce. Everyone, beware. Slayer equals sauce. Emo's okay. Emo's okay.
Emo. I don't know what I would have thought of emo back then, but it slayed me. The sauce slayed me, you know. So but definitely there was some underlining. Absolutely, you know, there is something there that most other kids, when they got out of that phase, they were able to do it no problem. But for me, I was stuck right in there.
Now, when you were saying you were doing some things now at some point to like you know, you had the keys to. I'm going to move forward a little bit in the story. You had the keys to the liquor room, right? And also at the same time, it looks like you were hiding some shit. You were moving some stuff around so that people wouldn't find out.
Yeah.
It sounds like you knew that this was a fucking problem.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. And the worst part is knowing that it's an issue, but feeling helpless, you know. And that's the other thing too. You feel like victim mode, right? You're in total victim mode, and so you just feel like I don't know what to, you know. And there's so much out there. There's so much help out there, but you're not ready yet because ego is telling you, you got this, man. Now don't listen to your intuition. Just screw that. You got this. Because next time you drink, it's going to be okay. You know, all that shit that happened there, that don't worry about that. That was a one-off, you know, when you did that and you fell down, you did this and you spent that money on that. Don't worry about that. Next time it'll be different. And that's all I listen to. The next time it'll be different because you're seeking for something outside of yourself, some sort of answer, some sort of antidote to what's eating you up in here. And so, you know, understanding that it was a problem. Absolutely. I used to go in front of the mirror and go, I'm an alcoholic. La-di-da. And move on, because it almost gave me a sense of identity. It's kind of twisted thinking, but that's where I was at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like I belong to something now. It's a crazy club and many of us die, but I'm part of something. And that's the twisted identity. Yeah. And that's the twisted thinking, man. That's the stinking thinking.
That's the stinking thinking. Yeah. Well, so my God, if you're getting wrecked and also at the same time, man, like if you're getting a DUI with your kid in the back seat and like what is the point where you're like, literally this shit is enough, you know? Because like you'd figure that, and I don't want to say you'd figure that, like I don't want to say rational brain and all this irrational subconscious and all this stuff, because as you're saying some things, I'm like, you know what? Like if you're looking in front of the mirror and your brain is rationalizing, hey, I belong to something, I have an identity. That's a pretty big fucking deal. Like I worked in identity work for a few years, you know? Yeah. And so that's a big deal to be able to rationalize that you're a part of something, but also at the same time, seeing that identity is problematic and it's going to be possibly your downfall as you're getting cuffed and you still get out and you still hit the sauce afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, what is that point where you were like, no effing moss?
Yeah. It was pretty much that. And I remember the last time I drank, it was like I'm in my parents' basement because I'd been kicked out of my house. And, you know, I'm just there and it was my last quiet drunk. And it was almost like my ego and everything just cracked just a little bit and a little bit of light came in. And I literally said, I can't do this anymore. And that was it.
So
and I went,
okay.
Yeah, no, it's just
the action that you took.
And right after that, I went to detox and I went to treatment and I haven't picked up anything since. And that's been almost 7.5 years.
Sweetness, man. So we were on a 20-year binge, and was that the first time you went to detox?
Oh yeah. One and done. Oh yeah. And I wrote something in the book. It was called The Bubble, and they would just watch you. And I was in there with all these addicts, everyone just kicking and drying out, and it was horrible. And I was like, I just don't want to be here again. It was terrible. Like 4 days in a row of being in one bed, couldn't sleep. I was up for like 3 or 4 nights in a row. I read about 4 books. I don't know which ones I read. They were just there because your mind, just the physiological response. You know, I had the DTs, I had the delirium tremens. I thought it was someone who was watching a hockey game, and I was like, I wonder what score is. But it was just hallucinations, oral. And I saw these blue bugs on the floor, on the wall, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's right. But I swear that someone was playing a hockey game, and I could hear the crowd and the announcer, because it's all this messed up, you know, your body's trying to rebound. So that was the action I took. And then right after that treatment, and then just really, really dug my talents into recovery program, and really went to town on it, and did so much stuff, so much inner work. And that's what the work is. Because when you're in a substance abuse thing, they generally say your emotional, your EQ stops at that time. So in a way, when I came out and I started doing this, I felt like a 15 or 16-year-old, like emotionally, you know. And so I joke with people. I was like, I feel like I'm 21. Like about 2 years later, I say, I feel like I'm 21 now. I feel like I'm growing, you know, because I'm doing things that normal people are doing and reacting. So it's such a big growth area. It was such a big thing, but I had to hit that down bottom to realize that there was work to be done, and I was worth it. And
so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this down bottom part, man, because one of the big pieces, and I love the fact that in terms of the of us coming back and talking about this on the Golden Mic, one of my favorite things to talk about as a positive psychologist is this idea that pain and hitting rock bottom could be, if you don't put too much judgment in it, it could be one of the greatest moments for you to really go into this mode of not just being resilient and coming back to who you were, but really taking in that nice burn, right? And like using pain as this touchstone. And I know that you talk about that, pain as a touchstone of growth. So like, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, there's, I think it was Father Ed Dowling that said, pain is the touchstone of all spiritual growth. And so it's really about recognizing, like taking that pain, because, you know, that is how a lot of us make big changes. You know, there's big changes that happen. And sometimes we need that wake up call, just like sort of how I needed. And generally there's, you know, it's sort of like a 4-step process of, you know, rebounding. And the first is, you know, is looking at acceptance, you know, really accepting it and not, and taking it on. And, you know, it's sort of understanding you can't unring that bell, you know, and not denying it, and just going, okay, I accept it. And again, no judgment, but just understand that that's what it is. And then the next one is taking responsibility, right?
Now, I want to throw this out there before we even go into the responsibility part. Was acceptance something that you had taken in when you were sitting there in your last drunk moment? You said no mas. Like, was that something that that sank in that moment with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And that was part of that motion to move, was understanding that it was all tied in, and just go, this is where I'm at, you know, and that's it. And, you know, it's me at my best got me here, you know, so I've got some learning to do. And so it was really accepting it as is, objectively, you know, not attaching anything to it, and saying that's what it is. And, you know, so that would take me to responsibility. And in responsibility, it's, you know, owning it. It's not finger, you know, pointing, not blaming anyone. And, you know, sometimes you get into the what ifs, and just to avoid the what ifs, because you could say, if I knew better, I'd have done better. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I know I shouldn't eat that third piece of cake, but I still do, right? And
bro.
And so, you know, once you realize that, you take responsibility for it, you can channel that energy into more positive things. It's almost like, you know, if you're on the bus and you elbow someone by accident, you got to take responsibility for that. You didn't mean to, you weren't trying to hurt someone, but still you got to take that. And that's where some people drift off, because you just got to own it. You got to be big enough to sort of take that and say, I did that. And that's okay. And again, no judgment. It's just a factual thing. And then the third part would be recognizing what you've learned. You know, like, how does this affect others? How does this affect me? How has this been affecting me? And it doesn't have to be a big thing like what I went through. It could be something that happened at work, and be a much smaller scale. But what have I learned? What insight? One lesson? This is, in coaching, we talk about this kind of thing. This is what we unfold. We open up peel the layers of the onion. What's the insight? What's the learning part here? And so with that, that's when you're starting to make that shift, right? That's when you're starting to make that shift from acceptance and responsibility. Now, where can we? Now let's start turning this around. Like let's start getting into higher energy with this, and then from there you get into goals. What am I going to do now? Now what am I going to do? How am I going to take that learning responsibility and actually, as you asked me, like, what was the action you took, right? You asked me that. That's what you do for yourself. What am I going to do now to take this learning and do something positive and empowering? And so with those kind of 4 things, that's where turning that sort of rock bottom, and sort of, if you envelop it with gratitude, just kind of lightly cover it with like this soft tissue of gratitude, because that's also going to give you a healthier perspective on how you look at things as you move on.
Now, I'd love to know, with this candy coating of gratitude that you've put on things, was that something that was easy for you to do, or is easy for someone who's hitting rock bottom? Because like I can see how you can not be in gratitude and be like, I'm so like, woe is fucking me.
Yeah.
Like, woe is me.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm, I wish that I had learned my lesson without this blah blah blah. Like, was gratitude something that was easy for you to practice as you were going through this? And I wouldn't say that you've even gotten out of it. Like 20 years is a big deal, man. So like, it sounds like you're still in this sort of ongoing cycle of acceptance, responsibility, blah blah blah. So it doesn't sound like just one moment. To me, I feel like, for me, that's something that I could check in with every day. This idea of acceptance, responsibility, feedback loop of what I've learned, and readjusting my goals around those things. And then the candy coating of gratitude, my goodness. When you're hitting rock bottom, I could see how hard that is to do gratitude. Was that something that was easy for you?
Hell no, not at all. I'm no spiritual giant here. Of course, it was fucking hard, man. I had to get it like hammered in my head, like, be grateful. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be, And so luckily, I had some people around me to mentor me, and they showed me, like, be grateful, you SOB. Like you're alive. First of all, let's start with that. And so then it kind of builds. So it's really hard sometimes, even now, I know I'm in a funk, or I'm in a sort of a difficult jam, and a bit of a jam, when I have a hard time thinking of 5 things I'm grateful for. If I have a hard time coming up with that means I'm somewhere else. I'm in my head, and I got to get out of my head. And so just waking up, and for about 2 years when I started, I had a notebook, and I used to write every night what I'm grateful. Wake up in the morning, what am I grateful for? And I still do that in my head now. When I wake up, what am I grateful for? When I go to bed, I do a little laundry list in my head. It just centers you, and it helps you when you get into these, especially when you're coming up from rock bottom, because it's hard to see the end of the light. And so if you come up with gratitude, it just helps to really shift things. So you're just getting out of your head. It really does. And even now, like you said, this cycle is not just like a one-off, all right, I'm done, see you later. I do this with different things, small things, bigger things. It's just constantly, like you said, checking in, and just learning, and just always with this level, this gossamer thin thing of gratitude. Always helps.
Look at you coming in talking about the word gossamer on my show, son. Can we please use the word candy coated, so I don't have to look like a person who doesn't have any words on my own show? Gossamer thin? I gotta say,
I'll send you the Wikipedia link.
Yeah. Gossamer thin.
Gossamer.
I just gotta say, what you talking about, Willis? Because like,
what you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about, Willis? And hey, what's in there? Vodka? Put it down. Put it down. We need to do an intervention.
Hey, back in the day.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, back in the day.
Well,
back in the day. Oh yeah.
I wanted to throw this out there too. Like, you know, like it does sound like there was this one kind of moment, right? But also at the same time, like since then, like have you had cravings to go back, or have you ever had cravings since that moment?
You know, the first year is brutal. There are times I did feel like it, but I just thought of, well, if I go down that path, what's that going to look like? No, you do, but it's not so much that it's not that you want the drink per se or whatever it is. People have their different things. Yeah. It was to get away from me. It was me trying to get away from me. So it was what's the root of this? And so when I felt that, I was like, man, I feel like I feel like something. I feel like something, whatever it is because there's something that's bothering me about me. There's something I can't work through right then. So it's easier just to go for the quick fix. And we still do this. All of us, in one way or another, we kind of, there's a difference between chilling out and numbing out. Right, so you can do your Netflix and chill, but you can go and do something else completely different. Right, it's totally different. So I wanted to numb out, right, and so that's the difference. So there was times of cravings, but they're very, very few and far between now. It might be just it's hot out and I see a beer truck going by. Ooh, beer, and I thought, have I ever just had one beer ever? Never.
Nice.
So you catch yourself, and just like a fly in front of your face, you just dismiss it, and then
you just kind of swat it. Yeah. So I chilling out and numbing out. I love it. And I don't even know where to go with. I don't even know where to go with that next question, man. Because you're throwing me off with these quotes and gossamer son. I guess what I wanted to talk about then is this idea of self-talk.
Yeah.
Because it does sound like this voice in your head, and also this voice in your head that you need more, right? And so with that idea of needing more was sort of the idea of, okay, do not touch that bottle, dumbass. Mm-hmm. But like maybe I can have you like that? Like your voice comes up and gives you power, and like your voice also calls you a dumbass, right? The little thing like voice in our head does. But like, I am curious, like, was the voice, is self-talk at some point still like, you know what? I understand that I have this idea of more is something that I can't touch with a bottle, but maybe I can do the idea of more in some other area and be able to, have control over that, and it won't have control over me. Is that something that your mind was saying? Is that something that...
Yeah. Okay. So there's two things there. So there's the one part is, yes, people do kind of shift their addiction a little bit. For me, it was sugar. I could not. It was sugar, and for years and years I struggled with it because that was my thing. I'm not going to get arrested for eating too many Oreos before I drive. But, so that's true. But you do fix it, and after a while, like the big joke is like, the word moderate. What is that? It's all or nothing, right? So I have learned to moderate a lot of things because it is easy for me to just jump in and kind of get lost in that. So that does happen, absolutely.
Okay.
The other part with the self-talk, I mean, when I talk about self-talk is, just even now, like back then, as I said, I used to call myself every name in the book. Mark, I used to punch myself in the face, literally, because I had so much self-loathing. I hated myself, and I was hitting myself, and like it's ridiculous. And I'd be on the street yelling at myself, like people thought I was this madman, because I was just barking at myself. Every name, never mind dumbass. That was when I woke up. I started with dumbass and moved on. So
that was pillow talk for you.
That was the
Good morning, dumbass. Hey, dumbass. Love you.
So, but when I talk about self-talk, it's really, that, how I spoke to myself. And not only that, and I have to watch how I do it now, even now, when we talk about ourselves, we try to do it in a positive, the language is important, right? And you got to do it in a positive way. And I was reading, and maybe you know about this, that the brain cannot differentiate. Let's say if I'm just yelling at someone constantly, calling them dumbass, calling them you loser, you'll never amount to anything. The brain doesn't necessarily identify you and them. So it almost starts to get unconsciously, it starts transmitting to yourself. So the language you use towards others and yourself is huge. And so even now, like, you know, I try to couch things in terms of positive, you know, messages to myself. I do affirmations every morning. It's, you know, I do meditation. And it's really about, you know, developing that positive self-talk, because I know what it's like to be on the other side of that. And, you know, as the subconscious takes in this information, it takes it into action eventually. And so it's almost like you're training your mind to really sit in positivity and to sit in a place that it's if you're treating a friend. You know, we always say to ourselves, would you say that to a friend? You're like, no, hell no. So why are you saying it to yourself? And I struggle with that too, but absolutely. And so for me, self-talk, that was a great lesson in how not to do self-talk, because that had consequences. That fed the machine. And we can do that. If it feeds it that way, why can't it feed it this way? And just talk ourselves and saying, you know, and you can even soften it, starting from, if you say I am, whatever, you can say I feel, you know, I feel upset, or I feel bad, as opposed to I am bad. And just so there's different ways of softening it so that you can really be gentle with yourself and still be able to say what it is that you're, you know, express what you're feeling. So I think self-talk is huge. Big.
I feel dumbass.
I feel dumbass. on the bus? No, it's several.
Yeah. Did you see? I mean, I wouldn't say that. Good God, man! Like I think about my own life, and I think about just how, like, even as a positive psychologist, just how, like, being in this mode, like, you just have a bad day, and the next thing you know is you aren't grateful, and the rock has been rolling the whole day, and you're calling yourselves a whole bunch of things, like, you know, I've been in this program for like 3 years, and I'm becoming like everything, you know, like, you know, it's like I could see that being a very hard thing to get out of, and that cycle getting out of. Do you feel like you could have gotten out of that self-talk without somebody recognizing and being like, dude, chill?
Yeah, you know what? No, I did need people. I did need, absolutely, I needed help in all ways. Like I needed people to point out my blind spot. You know, again, just especially when you're just coming out of this 25-year, you know, haze. Just like all the basic things, I needed someone to say, hey man, watch this, and where are you going with that? And so I had some mentors. You know, who these loving men who just really nurtured me and helped me to see things, and just to normalize a lot of my feelings. You know, that's something, like, again, that we do in coaching, is just to normalize it, because you feel so isolated, and that's the other thing too. You isolate yourself because you fear judgment, and so when you have someone saying, "No, dude, that's okay, man," like and you're like, really, and you get to see, and so you see how people, they talk to you, and then you start to reciprocate, and then it starts to build. And then you can get into more gratitude, and then you can see how this whole thing works, and you go, "Oh, that's what I've been missing all this time."
Dumbass,
drinking under the bridge. What are you doing?
Well, I think that is a huge thing for everybody, and I think to get even in a little bit deeper with this, do you feel like you could have had the growth that you had, or people can have the growth that they have without hitting the rock bottom? And without, I don't think. Themselves?
No, I have asked myself. That's a great question. I've asked myself many times, and I feel that I would not be where I'm at now if I didn't hit that bottom. I'd be kind of coasting. I think I'd just be coasting along, kind of like, you know, everything's okay, and not realizing just how much I'd be missing, you know. And it's sort of like, you know, if you think the analogy I use is like people with heart attacks, people who have had heart attacks. You know, studies have found that they live, once they survive a heart attack, they live much healthier lives and much longer lives than people who may not, because they found that they realize something's going on, and now all of a sudden they've changed everything, their diet and their, you know, exercise and all the stuff. They're meditating now maybe, and so now they're looking at themselves differently, and they realize how close they came. And so for me, that's been my experience, is I realized how close I came, and shit, like life is awesome. I've got to take it. And so I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and trying to, you know, transmit that kind of energy to other people. I definitely wouldn't be here.
Well, what I really like about that is, well, I don't know if I like that, but what I really like about what you just said is this idea of like when you start to not totally judge things and recognizing the power of gratitude as a disruptive force. Like, damn, I'm not, you know, I'm not fully alive, but I'm not dead, which is awesome. You know, awesome that dumbass isn't dead, but this dumbass needs to go and get some work from people who don't call themselves dumbasses. You know, like I need people. So that disrupting all force, or the disrupting force. The reason I said all is this idea of calling all cars now, right?
Yeah.
Calling all cars.
Calling all cars.
Like, now
calling
you're talking
cars.
about. Look at you with your short ass M57. You think I wasn't gonna recognize that short ass M57, son? Oh my god! How many likes do you have? Well, when you're talking about us transmitting energy, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by us like thinking about the energy that we're transmitting out there? Yeah. Because I'm thinking about the fact that you've been receiving this energy your whole life, the fact that you've been bullied your whole life, and like I'm thinking about the fact that I wonder how much of this unconscious that was talking to him are those motherfucking bullies. It's the voice of the bullies repeating themselves. Yeah. But you're saying, what's the energy that I'm putting out there? And so I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, and you're right. You know, that voice that I used to, you know, the self-talking, I mean, that was in a way the kind of those guys coming at me again, you know, and
they never disappeared.
They never disappear. But it's my responsibility. I continued that, you know, I perpetuated that.
Perpetuated. Yep.
Yeah. And so in terms of the energy, this is more kind of law of attraction type of deal, you know, so raising your, you know, instead of focusing on the problems, focusing on the solutions, right? It's that whole thing of manifesting what you feel. And that's part of my, let's say, my affirmations and visualization. I visualize myself a certain way, and I start to act as if I'm that person, or if I'm in that position, right? And so when you do that, you are, you know, that those are thoughts and beliefs turning into, you know, emotions, and that turns into action. So I'm taking the action as of someone who's up here, and you know, sort of an as if, and that, and you know, that idea that the universe conspires to get you what you wish, and I very much believe in that, totally. And so if I'm coming out of, you know, as I talked about, I used to be coming out of a victimhood mentality. Yeah. Well, guess what? I found every situation that I was in, I'm a victim.
Yeah.
Funny how that worked. But if I come at it at a higher level, higher vibration, higher frequency, then I'm attracting that. I'm attracting the people that are going to help me, the people that are going to, you know, give me advice or be able to work with, or just the whole energy itself. If I'm kind and loving to other people, all of a sudden you find that coming towards yourself. You know, so it's really about transmitting that energy, and as you raise your vibration, things shift around you. Your perception shifts. You see things differently. I don't see things as a victim. You know, once in a while I'll dip down in there, but I don't like it. But it's now about creating a different force, because when I was down there, glug, 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 I was definitely not at a high vibration. I was down in the pits, right? And so it's really important in terms of transmitting, and because people pick up, right? People pick up. You go into a room and you know someone's toxic, you just can feel the energy. You feel it. Or if you feel someone's in a great mood, you go in the room and it just feels lighter. So of course we pick up on this stuff. And so for me, it's just a matter of just going through the day feeling a certain way. And I may not even, some days I have to fake it, you know, because maybe part of me is down here a little bit, but I still do the work. I still go do my thing. I got my lists. I hammer through. I grind through the day. But by the end of the day, I'm feeling better. And then gratitude makes me feel better. So that really helps.
Yeah. What a way to get out of your own ego, right? Is with that the candy coated gossamer of gratitude. Fucking gossamer. You still haven't sent me the link, by the way. I'm still waiting for this, the link of what the fuck Gossamer means. But
I promise.
Yeah, thank you. And I know you're gonna follow through because you're a coach. Unlike me, sending you the link until like 5 o'clock in the morning your time. Well, and I wanted to throw this out there right now. So, for someone who feels like they're plummeting right now, or somebody who knows that they're in rock bottom, or again, someone who feels like the world is collapsing around them right now, and they're looking at you and they're saying, easy for this motherfucker to say, he went one time. I've regressed 3 times and needed to go into rehab, or like, oh, it's, he surrounded himself with mentors. No one understands what I'm going through with X, right? Yeah. And now this cat's talking about energy and vibration and all this woo bullshit. Like, what do you have to say to somebody who is just in that rock bottom mode right now and just completely saying, it's easy for Paul Silva to say, it's easy for Cardon to say, and they're like, I've read the damn book too. And it's just, the book, what is it called? The vibration book, the law of attraction. I've read the law of attraction books as well, right? It's just not, I just don't believe that stuff. I just don't like. What is your take on that?
You don't have to believe in that. You don't. I mean, we all have our paths, and for me, that's where the path I took. If you're in that moment, right now you're seeing the world like this, right? You're not open to all this. So right now, that's where you're at. And you have to understand that's where, and it's hard for you to see where you're at, that you have the blinders on, because you don't think you have the blinders on. So it's really about honoring where you're at, knowing that that's where you're, and that I would just tell I've worked with people like that. I've worked with lots of men and women who are just like, that's it, I'm just destined for this, and it's really about acknowledging a lot for them, and just and letting them sit in their pain. But also it's about, this is why we share stories. This is one reason I wrote the book. This is why there's meetings, for addicts or alcoholics to come together, because when they share their stories, they can identify, and they can say, you know what, if he or she did it, I can do it. And there's people there other people who are willing to show how they did the work or how they did that. And what I would say is, like, just be gentle with yourself. You are where you are right now, and that's okay. It's going to get better. And it's just a matter of taking the actions. It's really about actions. You're not going to get there on your own necessarily. You can, but it's very, very hard. You have to be very self-aware. And at that point, your self-awareness is pretty low. But it's really about, for me, that's where the empathy and that's where the service comes in, and just being able to empathize with them and just say, listen, if you come along with me, I'll show you what I did. And and then once you get on solid ground, then everyone's path goes. For me, it's this kind of work. For others, it's maybe volunteering at shelters or whatever. It could be whatever it is that people find a way to give back. And so, but for someone that's stuck there, it is hard to see, for them to see that there is more out there. But for me, it's just being able to just sit with them and just say, whenever you're ready, because for some people, they haven't had enough pain. They haven't had enough pain. And so what we call jokingly, if someone goes back out drinking, we say, oh, I guess they're doing more research, because they haven't. It's true. It's totally true. It's like, oh, I guess they're researching, because they haven't realized yet how bad it can get. And so once you get to the point where it's just so terrible, that pain point is so bad and so big, then they'll start to see that there is hope. But you have to get there, and you can't do it for them. I can't do their push-ups for them. They've got to be able to see it for themselves. But you can be there to kind of nudge them gently and every now and then, and let them know that it will be okay, and it doesn't have to be like that, and you can get off the hook whenever you want.
It sounds like that piece of you being of service is what keeps you growing too. Is like being there for another person who you're seeing is hitting that rock bottom, and just being like, be gentle with yourself. There's another way that you can talk to yourself. You don't have to believe in law of attraction like Slayer Paul Silva does, right? You don't have to believe. Yeah, and by the way, Renee gave you the Slayer, the Slayer double horns right there.
So, yes. Thank you.
You know, it's really amazing that maybe that last piece is the sort of being of service. Is that how you actually became a coach?
Oh yeah, it's, you know, service is huge. Service is, I mean, this, that, you know, for me, it's gratitude in action. You know, being of service. This is, you're in action. You can show, you can feel gratitude, but how are you going to show it? And so by showing it, it can show up in so many ways. But service for me was giving back to the recovery community. That's why, you know, I started a blog, then I had a podcast, and then that was part of the reason for the book, is to share that story and be open and to let other people see that it can happen to them. But service also, you know, helps to connect with your why. You know, why am I here? What am I doing? Why am I here? Why is this important to me? And so once you keep connecting with the why, the service is just part, is that circular thing. And, you know, it sort of, you get that helper's high, you know, that knowing that it's gonna, you know, the God or the universe, whatever you want to say, doesn't put two people together just to help one. You know, you're getting something out of it too. And I remember I'd be sitting, this is maybe 2 years into my recovery, and I'm sitting on my couch and just going, oh, I don't know, feeling low. And the phone rings and I can see it's one of my sponsees, one of, you know, someone that I'm helping. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk to him. But you know what? I because I'm in service, I answer. But you know what? By the time I was done, I was like back up. I was like back, because I got a buzz. I got goosebumps talking about it, because that's what it is, right? Like, he helped me as much as I helped him. And so being of service really kind of grounds me, and it's such a good way of giving back. And it just keeps connecting you to the why.
Gotcha. Yeah. And
oh no, am I out? Do we get kicked out again? Be live?
What have you done?
We're just like, really, honestly. Okay, I think we're good.
Am I back in?
You're in. You're back in like Flynn.
You know what? It's because the Be Live people heard the word get high, and you're over there, Be Live, getting high, you asshats. Why don't you guys get some acceptance responsibility, put a feedback loop on what you learned, and get some goals, Be Live. I can't wait to get out of my contract with you guys. I'm taking the gossamer off.
That's it. You're out.
What Be Live does to me. They just like playing with me now, because I declared to the world I want out of my contract with them a month ago. But Be Live, you suck at MCs. I wanted to throw this out there before you guys cut me off again. There's more to the story in here. And Longing for Spirit is a thick book, dude. It's a thick book with a lot of great stuff in there. So what goes on when we do the when we go to the bit.ly link that I just put up?
Oh, the bit.ly link is for, you just sign up, just put your name, email, and that'll get you on the newsletter. But more importantly, I'm going to, for the next, I don't know how long, maybe a couple days, I'll see how many come in, and then I'll just do a random thing. Maybe I'll get one of my kids to pull some. I'll pretend I'll tell them there's like a lollipop or something like that, and just fake it. And I'm like, where's the lollipop? Anyway, whatever. I'm just gonna fake something with them. So, trickster. I'll trick the kids, you know, whatever.
You might as well work for Be Live, you trickster. You're tricking children with candy. Listen to Slayer. What kind of citizen are you?
This is Canada. This is different.
That's
different here, man. So. So what I'll do then, I'll pick a name, and then I will send out the book. I'll take care of the shipping and handling. I'll take care of all that, and hopefully it'll land in someone's hands. And I hope they enjoy it.
You got to check out this book, and will you sign it like you did for what you did with me?
Yes, I will.
Nice.
That's it. I got a signing pen. I can't find it here.
You got
I got a signing pen. It's like a signing pen.
Oh, look
at
man.
Gold.
Look at this. The 9-year-old Renee says, yes, lie to the children. What does Slayer say to you people? What does Slayer say? Oh, okay, so I got to listen to Slayer after this. What's the song I got to listen to?
Oh, dude. Well, their first album is classic. Angel of Death. Listen to that one.
Angel of death, people.
Not with the kids in the room. I don't know. Just
okay.
Be careful. Be careful.
Got it. Angel of death. That's where we need to go. Now, this is the thing. Paul, I really appreciate you coming on the show. We've been connecting, like we've been saying, we've been kind of like passing these shots off, and like we've actually been like, we haven't talked, and I feel like we've known each other for a little bit, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on and being so open and honest about this. I also know that you've been like a super cool, like one of the hardcores that show up and just get up, like you get on and you talk with the guests, and I would love to have you back again, man.
I'd love to be back. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been.
You gave me a run for my money today, and I feel like I was feeling like giving you the golden mic, especially when you picked it up. You picked up a damn golden pen and a golden mic. Oh, you're gonna drop? No. You know what's up. You know what's coming up, man. You know that this is the last piece right now. This idea that there's a golden mic now, Paul. It's coming from your ceiling over there in Toronto, right? And this golden mic translates into every language all across the world for 2 minutes or less. Because there's been some talkative people on this show. They really had a lot of shit they wanted to say to the world. But you got 2 minutes or less, man. And so for 2 minutes, everybody is listening. And Paul, after everything that you've gone through, everything that you talked about today, and you're coming out of the other side with a book and you're being of service, the world is listening to you, man. So Paul Silva, you are on the Golden Mic Live now.
What I would say, and I'll make it quick actually, is something that if I could now pass a note through time to myself when I was around 15 or even before, I would just say that you are enough. You have everything you need here. This is where the party is. You got everything in here that you need to be happy, healthy, successful. Everything that you want is here. And that's it. It's all there. Don't look for it anywhere else. You're going to spend a long time looking for it somewhere else when it's always been here. That's it.
Brother, pick up that mic, that SM57 that you have.
How'd you know?
No, I want you to smash that SM57! I want you to smash... Oh, my
God! You know how much this is? Oh, no, I didn't!
Paul Silva, I got to thank you for coming on the Golden Mic. I can't think of a better way to come back and hit this show hard. Renee, you couldn't have said it any better. Beautiful. We're going to sign off for today. Remember to go and look up Paul Silva on the bit.ly link. All of it is in the show notes. Watch the show. If you feel like somebody is hitting that rock bottom, if you feel like anybody would be listening to this message or would love this message, which I think would be a lot of people, y'all. Anyone you think is that 15-year-old that needs that note to themselves right now, who needs the support, send this, share this out. This is what the show is all about. Now, this is the thing. We had a lot of fun here, Paul Silva.
Absolutely.
And I got one more question for everybody watching live or watching on the replay. You're feeling good and you're living life at your full capacity. If you're living life with full fulfillment, what is your responsibility to change history for the better? So this is Paul Silva. I am Marc Cardon. Golden Mic Live. I'll be back tomorrow. Paul won't, but his book will be available.
In his spirit.
Paul, thank you for being here, brother.
Thank you, Marc.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Stick around. Stick around, Paul. I'm not going to hang up with you.
All right.